Welcome to the Women Who Change the World podcast, the place where everyday women world changers share their stories to inspire, challenge, and equip you to change your world.
The event of the year for Christian business owners is just around the corner. Handprint Legacy Live 2021 is virtual this year, which makes it super easy to attend from anywhere in the world, without makeup, long flights, or expensive hotel rooms. Thursday through Saturday, June 24 to 26, we'll spend 3 powerful days mapping out your first or next most important steps for your business. I'm Katie Horner. My husband and I have grown from full-time ministry in Mexico to full-time international business owners by understanding and solving the countless marketing challenges faced by Christian entrepreneurs. We created the Handprint Legacy Live event as a safe haven where small business owners, teachers, authors, and coaches strategize, implement, and grow their business. This event is highly interactive and tickets are limited. Grab yours today before we sell out, because 3 days of Bible-based fun and marketing instruction is going to leave you with your next marketing funnel all mapped out. Register now for the 2021 event at handprintlegacylive.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another episode of Women Who Change the World. You are at the right place at the right time. I have with me my friend Flower, who is originally from South Africa, but for the past 8 years has been an expat in South Korea, and she is here to share her story. How are you this morning, Flower?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I know the time difference can often be a struggle, so thank you for fitting me in. I really appreciate it.
I am honored and excited to have you here because I know some of your story. I'm one of those people who can be a weird stalker on Facebook and not Facebook, but Instagram is like, that's a pretty picture. Heart it. That's a pretty picture. Heart it. My Instagram is all about inspiration, and you are very inspirational to me from managing a business while being a full-time teacher. And you're married. You've got so much going on. And didn't I hear something about you being on TV with your mother-in-law?
Oh yes, that was the most recent project. Shed more than a few tears trying to film that, but yes, I was.
So start off by, okay, not everybody's been stalking you like I have for the past year. She does take amazing pictures.
Well, help of hubby. Can't take all the credit. Either the tripod or the hubby's helping me take the photos usually, but yeah.
Your cafe pictures make me hungry.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, they're so good. So tell everybody a little bit about where you came from and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. So yeah, I'm from South Africa, Cape Town. I'm sure many of people know Cape Town. It's one of the capital cities. And yeah, I've been born and raised there my whole life. I had a very normal upbringing. You know, I was very, very blessed and lucky to have, a very happy childhood. My parents, did all that they possibly could for me, to give me the life that I have now. I'm one of the privileged South Africans, that has been able to go to university thanks to my parents, who was able to receive, private education thanks to my parents. And I think the most important thing I want to say before we, go more is that I fall under the privileged category in South Africa. And for those listeners that don't know, South Africa is a very divided country, and we have the majority of our population lives in, poverty and does not have the opportunities that a lot of us have. And I often feel guilty, about the fact, like, why did my life turn out okay? And also so many people in my country that will just simply never get the opportunities that I've had due to the color of their skin and our very sad history in South Africa. So I just want to put that out there, that I am very aware that I am a privileged white lady, and I don't ever take that for granted. And yeah.
So you were born and raised in South Africa. How in the world did you end up in South Korea? Or were you somewhere else before there?
No. So the only country I'd ever been to before in Asia was Thailand when I was 16. Again, my parents paid for me to go on a school trip to Thailand. And it was just so incredible. My heart just fell in love with the small piece of Asia that I saw there. And then a few years later, I'd seen some friends. I was really struggling in South Africa. I was 25, you know, same friends, same people, same situations for the last 25 years of my life. And I was just craving a change. Like my heart was desperate for a challenge. You know, I wanted to culturally challenge myself, and I felt like I was not moving anywhere. I was worried that if I just stayed in South Africa as a teacher, because I'd just, you know, qualified to teach, that I'd really regret not taking a leap of faith and putting myself in a completely different country. And I had two friends on Facebook, and they were currently in South Korea. So, like you, stalking, I would just stalk their pictures. And yeah, I saw their life, and I was like, it looks really interesting. I knew nothing about South Korea then. This was 8 years ago, you know, so the K-wave was only just hitting the scenes. Psy had become really popular. Gangnam Style, when Psy was on top of the K-pop world, you know. So I didn't know anything about K-pop. I didn't know anything about oppas and BTS and Psy. I didn't know anything. I only knew Psy. I didn't know kimchi. I wasn't a Korea boo. And there are a lot of people that do come to Korea because of their love for K-pop and K-culture. But that wasn't the case for me. I literally just wanted to be as far away as possible from South Africa and just kind of like have a fresh start, because I'd had a rough couple of years in South Africa. So yeah, I decided to have a gap year in South Korea, and it's kind of turned into my gap life 8 years later.
So you ended up starting to teach English there.
Yeah, I came over as a teacher, and yeah, if there's anybody who is interested at the end of this, you know, hearing my story, and they do want to come over to South Korea to teach, yeah, I kind of do part-time recruiting as well. So they're more than happy to contact me, and I can tell them all the different options. It's important that you go through the right options when you teach in Korea. I was lucky. I came through the government program. So I applied through the government program, and then you get placed in a government school. And it's very easy teaching. Anybody with a degree and a TEFL can do it. But yeah, after 2 years of doing that, I actually got really bored, because my passion for teaching was not really being met through the requirements of the teaching curriculum, because it's just very basic English, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, I am a teacher by profession, and so yeah, I looked at other options after that in teaching, but in a different field of teaching. Yeah.
So what grades have you taught?
I've taught everything except university in Korea.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So and that was the other thing. I started as a high school teacher. Like my passion is teaching kindergarten, actually, the babies. I love teaching the babies. And on my application form, I said specifically kindergarten, grade 1. And I was put in an all-girls Christian high school. And I was my high school is also a Christian girls' high school. So in a way, like I really feel God placed me there on purpose, you know. Mm-hmm. I really feel he placed me there on purpose, and it was the most eye-opening year of my life, and it was incredibly emotionally and hard. And I'll get into that later if you want. But the education system, if you want me to, you know, talk about that, I can focus on that as well. For those that don't know, the education system in South Korea, you know, Korea is regarded as having like the highest academic rates in the world, but it also has the highest suicide rates in the world. And no one can prepare you. There was no manual when I came, you know, how to be a high school teacher in South Korea. There was how to be a teacher in Korea, but there was no manual or guide how to be a high school teacher in Korea. And I was unaware at the time of the awful statistics around mental health and suicide and depression in South Korea. I was a newbie. I was 25 and I'd just come to Korea. And I was thrown into this all-girls high school. And I very quickly learned that there are so many girls that are suffering and struggling because of the education high school system here in Korea. And the pressure that is placed on students in Korea with SATs and getting into university. And so I ended up not teaching them really English. I felt like I became their mentor. And I ended up doing classes, not about grammar. I was like, screw this. We're going to do fun classes, because this was the only lesson in the entire day where they could kind of relax a little bit, you know, mm-hmm. and not be highly stressed. And so I wanted to make the classes as fun as possible. So I ended up teaching them, you know, dating in English and, you know, phrases they can use if they ever wanted to date a Western person, and travel English and SNS English and how to start a business in English, like making their own cafe if they ever wanted to make their own cafe. And I just tried to make it as fun as possible because I had so many girls telling me that they were depressed and suicidal because of the stress of high school. And it was so overwhelming for me because I wasn't that much older than them at the time,
Mm-hmm.
So my first year in Korea, I think was really God like paving the way for me,
Mm-hmm.
because one of my biggest things now is mental health in Korea. And I think had I not been put straight in that situation as a high school teacher, I would never have known, the intensity of how bad it is here, So I saw firsthand, I had girls writing me letters about how depressed they were and just wanting my advice and help and support. And it was very scary. But yeah, like I said, I feel that there was a reason I was placed there. Yeah.
So the statistic that I saw was like an 18.9% suicide rate.
Yeah, and it changes quite a lot, but I know for a fact, and this is the worst part of all, during SAT season, which is in November, the entire country shuts down. That is how much of a big deal they make about this stupid exam. And for those that don't know, like in Korea, the mentality is if you don't get into one of the top 3 universities, you're going to be a failure. Your life's screwed. You're done for. Like, there's no hope for you kind of thing. It's slowly starting to change, very slowly. I've been here 8 years, so I am seeing the progress, but it's so microscopic, and I think that's why it's good they have foreign teachers here. I think we are really needed here to try and, break the stigmas that exist for these kind of things, And so, yeah, the whole country shuts down. And on that day, every year, the suicide rate increases. Every year, that day, thousands of students end their lives because of the stupid exam. And it's just so bizarre to us, to us Westerners.
Mm-hmm.
How can someone end their life just because they've failed at an exam? Or not even failed, just they feel they haven't got a high enough score. To us, it's bizarre. To me, it's bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
I was that student at school that would try my best, and if I don't pass, well, try again next time.
Yeah.
But the mentality, and this kind of mentality is across the board in Korea, and it's really so scary that they give up so easily. It's this mentality of like, I can't change in my situation. It's over. And shame. There's such an entrenched Confucianism still really like rules the society here very deeply. And the whole shame, feeling of, shame and embarrassment is huge. Like we've had so many politicians in Korea commit suicide and, K-pop stars and stuff because of the shame that they get or the reputation that is attached if they, continue living, that rather end their life than kind of face the consequences or, like, wow, there's so much I can say. There's a lot I want to talk about with the K-pop. But yeah, my point is that this test literally causes the suicide rate to increase in November every year when they have the test.
I was a very, very good student. AB top 10 in my class, top 10% of my class. I bombed the SAT. I bombed the SAT because I was so nervous. Not that I wasn't smart. I was nervous. But I remember in 8th grade, it was my last, we had things in, we had semesters and then we had 6 weeks. You get your grades every 6 weeks. And the last 6 weeks, I don't know what happened, but we were covering a topic in Algebra 1 and I couldn't get it. I just couldn't get it.
Yeah.
And so when I took the test, I got an F. I'm like a straight A student in math.
Right.
Math was my thing because you follow the rules, you get the answers right.
Right.
So I got an F, and I hid that from my dad until I took my semester final, and then I missed nothing on my semester final. So
Right.
I figured it out, but I remember hiding my report card and thinking, I can't keep this from him. He's going to ask. And maybe I would just be better off dead than disappointing my father.
Right.
And
And
I'm 14.
Right. Yeah.
I'm
And
14.
Yeah. And that age bracket, the middle school, high school age bracket, is where that age bracket, and then like the older generation, those are the highest age groups for the suicide rates in Korea.
What do you mean the older generation? What are you talking about?
Like the over 50s and 60s, that age bracket as well. The suicide, I don't know the exact statistic, but that is one of the highest groups as well for suicide in Korea. And that's a lot of the time that's got to do with the very old, like if they've been accused of something, they don't want to continue living their life with a criminal record or sexual assault offense. Literally just happened recently to one of the politicians who was accused of sexual assault. He literally ended his life. So yeah, it's very frightening. To me, it's very scary how easily people will just end their life here. And yeah, that's why I said I've become such an advocate now for mental health. And my husband's actually working now with a mental health startup, with our friend's mental health startup. And we're really hoping to try, together as a couple to reach Koreans, young Koreans, and just, give, my husband was the same with his SAT. He did really badly. He's a highly intelligent guy. And he also just, flunked it as most people do. But he's smart enough to know that there's more to life than an SAT. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. SAT, it just tests what you know right at that moment, not what you know in general.
But that's Korea in general as well. You see, Korea is still like I said, I've been here 8 years, so like I'm seeing the changes, but still in general, it's very much all about what do you know? Not how did you get the answer, not critical thinking is a whole new thing in Korea still. It's a very new concept. In Korea, is such a new concept in Korea. And yeah, like there's just so much to be done here in education and with mental health, and they're so tied together, and I think that's why I feel maybe that's why God's kept me here so long, is like, that's my part of my path here, to somehow help with that.
I mean, if you're curious and you're listening and you're curious, you can find out about politicians and celebrities who have committed suicide over there. My first exposure, I think I got the date right, 2017, Jung Hyun from SHINee.
Yes, right. Yeah, that was a big one that took the world. And I think that was the one that really opened up the whole conversation about mental health and K-pop stars especially. And I think one of the reasons why BTS has gone so viral is because they have been pretty transparent and open about everything. And they focus on a whole different ball game of trying to use their influence as K-pop artists to promote mental health, which is not what a lot of other K-pop artists do. And that's the other thing. I know there are probably going to be a lot of people listening to this being like, she's so lucky she's in Korea, she's with all the K-pop stars. But I really want, I try and be very transparent on my SNS as well about these things. I've made a few videos about like suicide and the influence of K-pop and stuff. And I really want people to know, please don't watch K-pop and K-drama and think that what you are watching is the reality of the country, because it is really not. You are seeing such a sugar-coated version of South Korea. And I love this country, but it's really important for us to not get lost, in the K-dramas and the K-pop, because they exhaust themselves. BTS, ironically, my fear is BTS have become so massive. They were very authentic before and very to themselves. They are a global sensation. The pressure on them is huge. They are promoting mental health, but the irony is that they are probably going to burn out at some point too. And And that's, you know, a great worry. So please, if you are a K-pop fan, please be aware that your idols are probably really struggling emotionally to keep going. Because I think a lot of people forget about that. You know, we see idols and celebrities as these godlike characters, and we forget they are very human, and they suffer more from emotional, you know, stress and struggles than we do because they have no outlet. You know, they can't date. Most of them can't date. Most of them have no time to get the personal help that they need because they're permanently on the road or doing shows. You know, they're training. They train from a young age, you know, K-pop trainees. So
they're in the gym too a lot, aren't they?
Well, I mean, yeah, whatever they've got to do to maintain that image, you know. And so I just think people need to remember that. Yeah.
That it's it seems like it's a very lonely life.
Yeah, 100%. 100. I mean, they live in dormitories together. Like I said, they hardly have any privacy. Most of them sign 10-year contracts, and they are not allowed to date. You know, it's you literally sacrificing a lot to become, you know, a global sensation. But I really feel BTS have done amazing work in trying to open up this whole conversation with mental health, and that's a big thing. I just hope that they will protect their own mental health whilst trying to change the world, because that happens too. you try make a difference in the world and you burn out. You know, that's also a very real thing.
There's been a couple of other songs that I've heard recently. One of them, House Party, I think. My daughter had mentioned it too.
I haven't heard of their brand new one's called Film Out. That came out about 2 weeks ago. Film Out. It's really beautiful visual.
No. BTS didn't come out with House Party. It's another group.
No, I'm not sure.
Oh, that's Super Junior. Super Junior came out with the song House Party, talking about washing your hands, wearing your mask, keeping your distance.
Oh, okay. Yes. I actually haven't heard. I haven't even seen that. That's cute, right?
Yeah, I think that the reason I remember that is because the World Health Organization said something about it.
Okay.
Praising them for it.
Yeah.
But nice. Yeah, I've heard it enough times. Like the music's a good jam.
Yeah.
Music's a good jam, and the words are good.
Okay, I'll check it out. But yeah, like BTS's, you know, like BTS's main message, and I think this is really important, you know, they really are using their influence and fame in the best way possible. And I think, you know, they're really hopefully going to change the whole conversation about mental health, students, education, you know. If you haven't listened to it already, guys, you should listen to Love Myself. They made a song called Love Myself and Love Yourself. And literally, like, it's so inspiring. And I think it's helped a lot of people through a lot of hard times. It's just such a beautiful reminder of, like, to be gentle with yourself, you know. And I think anyone who's struggling now, if, you know, I think Corona's really had an impact on everybody, you know. And I've been lucky. I've got someone by my side during this pandemic, you know, but it's still taken its mental toll on me and stuff. And I think it's a really great song just to remind yourself to not give up on yourself. So yeah, please listen to it. It's called Love Myself by BTS. Yeah.
So did you ever get to teach those kindergarten kids that you wanted?
So,
good.
Yeah. So then I left public school and I went into, it's called a Hagwon. And just want to reiterate, use this opportunity. If you are coming to Korea and you end up working in a Hagwon, which is a private academy, be very careful. You are welcome to contact me and I will tell you which ones you should apply for, because the Hagwon, there's a concept called like Hagwon hell in Korea amongst foreigners, because so many foreigners have awful experiences. They do make you work very hard. You know, I was at a kindergarten Hagwon. So they work you very hard. If you're a kindergarten teacher in Korea, you're basically mommy, you know, for 8 hours a day to 15 to 20 kids, and not speaking your native language. So you can imagine the struggle, but I love teaching them. But it is a lot of work. Kindergarten is by far known to be the most amount of work as an educator. Most people run away from it in Korea. Like when I tell people I love kindergarten, they're like, you're crazy. They're like, not in a million years. But again, you know, I feel as a foreign teacher, if we can start educating the little ones early, you know, and having our kind of Western influence and helping them see that it's not okay if they don't know the answer, that's why I want to be there. I want to help be that change from a young age for them, because that's where development happens, you know, from the kindergarten age. And if us foreign teachers can show them, you know, a new way of doing things and praise them for being them instead of, you know, why aren't you speaking English, you know, because that's kind of the mentality here. It's like, no Korean, only English. And my belief is like, well, they're not going to know what to do if they don't understand the task, you know. So I've had more than my fair share of fights with Korean co-teachers, because it's this constant battle, right, of like old school traditional Korean teaching with a brand new out there like open-minded foreigner. So I haven't always been the most favorite foreign co-worker to work with for my opinions, but you know, I'd like to believe I've made a positive change in the lives of my students. So yeah.
So I've been studying Korean on Duolingo, and this sentence keeps coming up, and I'm like, this is the most ridiculous sentence ever. And then I thought, maybe they're teaching it to me, and don't ask me to say it, because it's a sentence that you will hear often. And it's, Mister, why are you so fat?
Oh, right.
Do children speak that way to adults?
Yeah. And a lot of foreigners, you've got to have a really thick skin in Korea. You know, what foreigners need to remember is that for a lot of Korean kids, you're the first foreigner they're ever seeing, right? You're going to be the first foreigner. Korean by nature is a very tiny population. It's just the DNA. I mean, my first year in Korea, I had kids constantly playing with my red hair. They must have thought I was like a lion. They'd never seen a person with red hair before, and my hair on my skin is like blonde. They were shocked. Like they would literally sit playing with my arm hair all day long, you know. And I mean, I've been here 8 years. I still get stared at in the subway constantly by old people. You've got to have a very thick skin. You can't let 5-year-olds calling you names get to you. You know, you've got to understand they're tiny children that have never seen other people before, you know, other foreigners before. So, yeah. But again, that also comes down to the fact that Korea's got such high beauty and physical appearance standards. Like let's focus that on the other episode, because I feel like that is a conversation that will take hours. But literally the beauty standards in South Korea are just next level. Everyone expects you to look permanently photoshopped. And again, please don't look at the K-pop stars and think that is how they all look. The majority of all of them have had extensive plastic surgery to look the way they do. Korea, again, is one of the highest like plastic surgery rates in the world. So from a young age, they are taught, you know, like, be pretty, be beautiful, be handsome, you know. So there is very little room for different shapes and sizes. Racism, you know, it's across the board, everything. We have a lot of work here to do as foreigners, and that's why I said I feel very strongly about, you know, remaining here and educating, because it's only through us that really they're going to break these stigmas, because the traditional, the old school Korean teachers sure as hell are not going to have these kind of conversations with them, you know. So yeah, I've got a lot of friends that really struggled. Like they would cry. They'd be like, the 5-year-old called me fat. And, you know, I had to be tough love and be like, but they're 5. And they also, you're literally the first person that they've seen that looks like this, you know. You got to turn it around, you know, like with the whole thing in Asia, Asian hate, you know, it's kind of the same thing, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's, you know, I think some foreigners can take stuff very personally, and I'm like, you can't take it personally. You know, you can't. You just, but yes, that's very common. Yeah. Or the other one is, teacher, you look so tired today. That basically means, teacher, you look like fucking shit today and you look really ugly. Basically, like if you don't wear makeup, like if this was me today at school, teacher, you look so tired. Are you sick? Literally, like favorite phrase as well.
So I will have to admit, I have a thing for red hair, but my grandpa was a redhead, and I had a cousin that was a redhead, and I wanted a redheaded baby. I have one he's got the attitude of a redhead, of the Scottish redhead, which I have Scottish in my side of the family. But yeah, I wouldn't stare. I would say, your hair is so pretty. I just have this thing for red hair. But when you have people staring at you, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so
do you like stare back at them?
Yeah, I mean, I used to feel really uncomfortable. I've been here 8 years. Like, I don't give a shit anymore. So, like, I'll just stare, especially it's guys. It's often, like, old men for staring at me for all the wrong reasons, I imagine. and I just look at them until like they feel uncomfortable. That's kind of what you got to do. But we had a very, but also like my husband's Korean, so often, especially now these days, yeah, we get a whole lot of funny stares. It's bad enough being single and a foreigner in Korea. Now attach your Korean husband to it, and it's just like all the old people in this country who are stuck in their ways, who will never accept foreigners here. We had a lady literally 2 days ago, and my husband like shouted at her. She literally was just staring at us, like would not, like if looks could kill, she would have killed us both with her eyes. And my husband was just like, what? He was like, where? Like, what are you looking at, lady? Like, but you just, like I said, I've been here so long, like I just laugh it off. I'm just like, oh, shame. This is my Korean husband. We're going to make a beautiful baby. Deal with it, like.
If it was anywhere else in the world, I would say, do something to totally shock them. But
yeah,
it's not, and we're trying to keep this PG-13.
yeah.
So that was just, yeah, people staring. I think that would be funny. I would find myself going, hi, being American, hi, how are you? Trying to shake their hand. They're like,
yeah, just irritate them and, like kind of intimidate them, and that'll keep them at bay too. Yeah. But some people really struggle with that. Like I said, some foreigners really do struggle with adapting to these kind of small things, and you've got to have a thick skin here to survive or you're not going to survive.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you've mentioned this shame culture a couple of times. How does that affect the dynamic of a family? It's a very homogenous country, so there's not a lot of foreigners.
Yeah.
And if I'm understanding what this video that you did with your mother-in-law was about, was kind of like showing how a Korean mother-in-law can better accept her foreign daughter-in-law.
Well,
that's what I'm understanding.
Actually, the real concept of that show is showing the cultural clashes between Korean mothers and daughters-in-laws. That's actually the real concept. It's showing the clash and the problems, right? So they had approached us a long time, many times, and I kept saying, no, I will not do your show because I do not like the way you are portraying foreign women. You are making us intentionally look bad. So after like 5 times of them asking us, I eventually said, I will do your show if you allow me to do it this way. I was like, this is what I want to talk about. This is how I want to educate the viewers. And this is what my mom and I are prepared to do, because my mom and I have no issues. We have a huge language barrier. She can't speak English. My Korean's not great. But besides that, so obviously on a, like people say, oh, well, then like you obviously might have issues because you don't know each other's personal situations, very deeply. But on the majority of the time, we haven't had any issues. Like the fact that she just accepts me as her foreign daughter is a massive thing in itself. Like, I'm not a quiet person. I'm very out there. I'm very outspoken. I'm very unfiltered. That is the exact opposite of what Koreans like. Koreans are so conservative, So I was incredibly blessed that Hoon's family accepted me just the way I am. And that's the whole story that we tried to kind of put through the TV show, and even still, they still tried to make me look bad in some parts,
Mm-hmm.
like criticizing me. Oh, you don't spend hours making banchan. Banchan is Korean side dishes. They were like, why don't you make lots of side dishes for your husband? And why don't you get your hair cut and make yourself look beautiful all the time? So they tried to still criticize, not they acted. We had to act, right? In some parts. Some parts were scripted. So the parts where like mom criticized me about, there's frozen food. Why aren't you making fresh food? Blah, blah, blah. That was scripted. She never really wanted to say that, and she doesn't really care. She's very relaxed. I'm really lucky. She's not your K-drama style mother that K-drama puts out there. Because in K-drama, they usually, I said this during the show, I was like, K-dramas really portray Korean moms in a very negative light, because they do often. They like portray them as these psycho witches. Many are. Like, I've had my fair share of past relationships and mothers. Many of them are.
Mm-hmm.
but there are also the exceptions like my mom. And I think that's why it was so important for us to do the show, because I wanted to show the complete other side. It's possible to be in a Korean family and be accepted. It's possible for the Korean mom to accept and embrace the foreign daughter's culture and life. And I really hope that that is what got across, through doing our show. And we spoke a lot about Ubuntu. Like, this became a very big part of the TV show, and me reiterating this point, like, of Korea has got to start being more accepting of foreigners. Korea's population, birth population, is, as we know, like the lowest in the world right now. This country needs babies. And local women are not getting married and having babies like they used to. So they are going to be reliant on the multicultural families in Korea to produce children. And that's not going to happen if foreign women don't feel accepted, if foreign women don't feel like they are supported. Why would I want to bring in a half Korean South African child if I'm not going to get the respect that I need, know?
Well,
So,
if you're going to stay there, you need the support of family too.
Right. Yeah. So, Korea really, I tried to be as honest as possible in that TV show. A lot of stuff was left out that I wanted to say, but I think the important parts were there. I said very openly, I was like, you guys have got to start accepting us foreign wives. We're never going to be Korean. I'm never going to be Korean. I'm not going to ever be able to follow the Korean way exactly. And that shouldn't be expected of me, Like, I'll always be respectful, but don't expect me to look like a photoshopped human 24 hours a day with a perfect face, and that's where I brought the culture in. Like, they just need to be educated. Like, in South Africa, we don't care about makeup. It's not a big thing to us.
Right.
It's like, I'm an entrepreneur. My focus these days is on my business.
Right.
I don't have time. Sorry, my focus is not spending 3 hours cooking in the kitchen for my darling husband. Doesn't mean I don't love him. I love him just as much, but I'm showing him my love through trying to build an empire, Like, so I brought these kind of things up. They'd be like, why aren't you in the kitchen? I'd be like, because I'm trying to build an empire. Why don't you make yourself look amazing every single day? Because I have more important things to do with my time than paint my face with makeup for 5 hours. Like, just trying to teach them, like, it's different culture. That's not important to me,
Well, and I saw the beauty of it. I think it was, you posted a picture near Chosuk where you made this dessert that had peppermint in it.
My dessert. Yeah. In their house. Yeah, I made it in mom's house. I was teaching them about South African snacks and dessert. Yeah.
Well, I had an experience where the first time I met my future in-laws,
yes,
I brought one of my favorite dishes for Thanksgiving. And I know Chosuk is kind of like their version of Thanksgiving that we have.
Yeah.
And it was very much, why did you bring that? That's not something we normally eat. This is my first real experience with my future in-laws, because I was engaged at that time. And it's like, but everybody brings something to the table in my family.
Right. Yeah.
You don't come unless you bring something to the table.
Sure.
I mean, even the single guys are like, we'll bring the drinks, we'll bring, something we could pick up from the store. They don't have to make it.
Yeah.
And, I don't make everything for my husband. Actually, in fact, my husband made my dinner tonight, which I'm thankful for. So it's a different environment of, he has his work, I have my work, and we take care of each other in that way.
Yeah.
So is there because you said there's a lot of foreign girls that are not really accepted by their Korean mother-in-laws.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? I mean, you don't have it, but how did they deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, like, I literally, like, I count my blessings every day that I don't. Like, I'm in a chat group with 50 foreign newly wed women to Korean men, and it's horrible. Like, it's horrible seeing some of the stories, I mean, like, one of the biggest things for me was, when Hoon and I were serious and we decided to move in together and everything, I said to him, I was like, look, if your parents don't accept me, we can't do this. I said, there is no way that we're going to be able to continue this relationship if they don't accept me, because it's going to make our relationship incredibly hard. And it's already hard enough being a foreigner in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the added stress of constantly having to prove myself as to why I'm a good match, why your parents should accept me. I don't have to keep proving myself that they need to accept me. They need to just, embrace me as I am. And if they don't like me, that's totally fine too, but then we can't work out. So yeah, we were both just very lucky. But I mean, there are a lot of women here who are living with their in-laws and stuff, and they are very, very controlling. And it's just, I would never tolerate that, Like I said, I just wouldn't have. I think a lot of these women do just still try to push on, even though the families don't accept them. And like I said, I would never get myself into that situation. I just wouldn't put myself there, because it makes life too hard, But yeah, like I said, I'm really blessed with my mom-in-law, and she's just so open-minded. She is not like your typical Korean lady by standard. She is so out there. I mean, she got up and was dancing with me, and
I saw that.
She's very Yoja power. She's very much like me, like she's very independent. Her mother died at a very young age. They spoke about that a lot in the TV show, which was really emotional for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
She said some things that she had never told anyone before. So that was really emotional. But she's very independent. Because her mother died when she was young. She was basically mom of the house. So she's not your typical Korean Georgia story, The gender roles in her life have always been pretty reversed. She's always had to, help her dad a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing, where like our gender roles in our house with Hoon and I are very, very different. I've just quit my job recently, but up until February, like I was the one, bringing in more of the income, and he was the one staying home, working from home, doing the housework, cleaning the house, doing the laundry and that kind of stuff, And I'm also very lucky. He's very open-minded, and he doesn't believe in gender roles at all. He's like a total feminist, like really lucky. Again, that's not the case in general in Korea. That's kind of the exception. But I think the younger generation, he's a lot younger than me, and I definitely feel the younger generation are a whole different ballgame. Most of them have been overseas. Most of them have foreign friends. Most of them have had Western education. So their mindset is completely different to the 35 to 50-year-olds in Korea, because I've dated 35-year-old oppas. Like, they were a disaster. Like, did not work, because my personality is far too independent for their liking, So yeah, it really is an interesting dynamic. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I know that we are just getting started into this episode, but I had to cut the podcast episode in half to make 2 episodes because it was just too good to edit anything out. Be on the lookout, because part 2, I promise, is worth the wait.
The event of the year for Christian business owners is just around the corner. Handprint Legacy Live 2021 is virtual this year, which makes it super easy to attend from anywhere in the world, without makeup, long flights, or expensive hotel rooms. Thursday through Saturday, June 24 to 26, we'll spend 3 powerful days mapping out your first or next most important steps for your business. I'm Katie Horner. My husband and I have grown from full-time ministry in Mexico to full-time international business owners by understanding and solving the countless marketing challenges faced by Christian entrepreneurs. We created the Handprint Legacy Live event as a safe haven where small business owners, teachers, authors, and coaches strategize, implement, and grow their business. This event is highly interactive, and tickets are limited. Grab yours today before we sell out, because 3 days of Bible-based fun and marketing instruction is going to leave you with your next marketing funnel all mapped out. Register now for the 2021 event at handprintlegacylive.com.